Yo, what is going on, everyone? This is your host, Tarod Rashad, and you are listening to the TARODCAST podcast. It's been a week. We took a week off just to get some things in order, but now we are back and we are on a regular schedule. I've missed you guys. I hope you all missed us too. As you already know, at TARODCAST, you can take everything we say with a grain of salt. We simply just want to add some flavor to your meal. So if we're doing that, then we are doing our job. To all of our new listeners listening to TARODCAST for the very first time, welcome. To all of our returning listeners coming back and getting another dose of TARODCAST, welcome back. I've got a wonderful show lined up for you guys today. Every show is a wonderful show, but this one is dealing with the subject of parenting. So without further ado, let's introduce today's topic. Parents just don't understand. This is TARODCAST. Let's get it. All right, welcome everyone to TARODCAST. If you are listening and you'd like to listen to us on a podcast provider that you would like to take with you wherever you may go, we are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Castbox, Podcast Addict, iHeartRadio, and YouTube. And today we are talking about the subject of parenting with the topic title of Parents Just Don't Understand. Now, yes, I am lifting that title from a classic Will Smith and DJ Jazzy Jeff song, and I feel like it fits. This conversation that we're going to have today is actually inspired by conversations I've had with my wife, with friends, and even conversations within myself. Being a father, a dad, there's a lot that goes into it. I want to be as active as I possibly can be. And I know that there are a lot of children who do not have active fathers. But when I think about fatherhood, I think about not just being someone to discipline my child, but I want to be someone who is truly invested in my child, playing a role that gives my child comfort when she is going through her particular situations, moments, experiences. I want to be able to provide a sort of wisdom, just something that is lived through my life that I can pass down to her, that she will carry on in her life. And to be honest, when I first became a parent on July 27th, 2015, it was one of the most influential experiences of my life. I knew that if I was going to be a parent, I wanted a daughter. I know a lot of men, they want sons. They want somebody that can carry on the family name. But I wanted a girl, and I don't know. For me, it is something about having a daughter that allows me to keep my own emotional fortitude in any situation. I have to be someone that when she begins to transition in her own life into teenhood, adulthood, I want her to be able to have a male figure in her life that can help guide her and coach her and equip her with things that I have learned that will help her to navigate in the way that she needs to navigate, so that way she can be successful and she can be prosperous and all of that. And so for me, having a daughter, having a 4-year-old going on 14-year-old daughter is not only a challenge, but it's a blessing. And I wouldn't trade her for anyone else. And so as I think about parenting in 2020, especially parenting for us late 20-somethings, early 30-something millennials. I feel like parenting has taken a bit of a sharp turn away from how we grew up and how we were parented. And when I pinpoint that sharp turn, it takes me back to the fact that some of us are still figuring out and accepting and fixing our minds from how we were treated by our parents as kids. Now, I don't say this to say that all parents don't know what they're doing, but realizing that the way that we are choosing to approach our lives and approach our minds and filtering out and unlearning things that do not benefit us, things that may have been passed down, those are things that I reflect on each day. Because when you think about it, when you think about your parents' voice as a child, that voice doesn't truly go away. It's something that stays with us throughout the course of our lives. It's something that guides our decisions. It's something that sometimes can make us feel horrible, or it can make us feel like we are on top of the world. It can make us feel many different things. And our parents' voices are the very first voices that we hear on a consistent basis most times. And I want to be able to have a consistent voice for my own daughter that allows her to make decisions that are in her best interest. And with that being said, I know right now with her being a toddler, she's just learning the impact of cause and effect. If you do this, then this happens. If you eat your food, you can have a snack. You know, that's the simplest, probably the most rudimentary example I can give. And on the subject of discipline, I know that even as millennial parents, some of us, we still discipline our children physically, but some don't. For me, I remember being physically disciplined as a child. And when it comes to my daughter, I don't do that. And I'm not really one who believes that you have to strike your child in order to discipline them. If anything, making sure that your point is well made, using your emotions and your tone to convey the issue. Oftentimes they'll get it. I know my daughter gets it. And we communicate with her directly because she's not, to us, just a child. She is a little adult. She is still a full person. And I know that the world is not going to act the way that we act as parents. But I want her to know the impact of cause and effect. I want her to know that if you are being good, if you are being someone who is being kind, then kindness should and normally will, not in all cases, but normally it will be returned to you. But if you do not act in this kind of way, then you may be met with hostility from others. And we want her to know that her voice in every conversation that she has with us is important. And it's funny, even when we have conversations, my wife and I, and she is there and she hears something that she thinks she can comment on, she'll jump in and we let her say everything she wants to say in that moment. And again, we just want her to know that her voice is equally as important, as our own. And she needs to feel that value. She needs to have that validation. Because in this world, we're oftentimes made to feel like our voices don't matter, even though we have all this access to social media and technology and platforms that make us feel like our voices contribute to something larger. oftentimes it's a lot of noise. And being able to instill within my own daughter that if we are having a conversation and you want to have your input in our conversation, you can, because we value what you believe you want to say and what you have to say. And so in situations like that, we don't discipline her for interrupting our conversations with something that she feels she can chime in with. We want her to be able to develop conversational skills and also to not have this irrational fear and to pull away from us whenever something may be on her mind and she gets to a point where if we push her to the side all the time, she won't tell us anything, and to be quite honest, some of us are still learning more about ourselves alongside our children who are also learning about themselves. And in that, we're also simultaneously trying to balance that learning process. We're trying to balance the things that we are filtering out of our mind and unlearning. And we're also balancing the learning processes of our children who are learning things for the very first time. And in doing that, we really have to be careful. We really have to be careful because oftentimes there are things that we unknowingly pass down to our children. And the last thing that I want to pass down to my daughter is a trait or a characteristic that breaks her or makes her into a toxic person. And to be quite honest, a lot of us want our children's mental health to be better than our own. Again, hoping that we don't pass down the worst parts of ourselves to them. And that there's a lot in that. There's a lot to unpack in that. Because for a lot of us, we can trace so many things back down to our childhood. A lot of us can remember things that stayed with us that we didn't understand at that point. But now that we are adults, we can actually grasp the scope of what those situations actually meant. And the last thing that I want is for my daughter to have a memory or an experience that she attributes to me and it's negative. Now, I know that there's a difference between scarring her and her not getting her way. Those are two completely different things. But in the realm of parenting, especially for my family, I want her to see that her actions, again, have a reaction, whether it's a reaction from her parents, whether it's a reaction from her teachers or her friends at school, or even from the world. Every action she takes has a reaction that comes back to her. And I want to be able to guide her in a way to show her this in the most positive way possible, in a way that she understands it and she's able to navigate on her own with that understanding. So to me, to be a parent in this particular decade, to be a father in this decade it's to do everything that I can to give my child the best chance of survival, peace, and success. I want her to be able to define her own success. I don't want to give her an expectation of what I feel success is, but I want her to chart out her own journey to success. And if she makes it there, she will know that she is all the more better for making it there. It's also my responsibility to be a safe haven for her. I want her to know that if she ever has to say anything to us, maybe it's something that she feels we may not like, or it's something that she is scared to put out in the open. I want her to know that coming to her own parents is not a death sentence. It's not something that is going to condemn her to the bowels of hell for the rest of her life. Because I feel like if we get to that point, if we get to a point where our children do not feel safe telling us things, then we have failed. And there are a lot of parents, parents that have parented us. A lot of them feel that way because when it comes to the emotional investment in our children, it wasn't all the way understood. It wasn't all the way formulated in a way where we felt safe. It's one thing to say, you can tell me anything, but it's another thing to actually have your child believe it, even in the worst of times. And so I want to be able to be a safe haven for her in any situation that she may ever find herself in. Because if I can't be that, I know this world will not be that. So she at least has one guaranteed place where she can feel safe and she can be 110% who she is. It's also my duty to preserve her curiosity and help her navigate her own mind before she is set free to navigate the world. And like I just said, it's the burden of responsibility on my shoulders to give her what she needs to succeed, to give her what she needs to never lose her creativity, to always press forward, to always persist, to always be mindful, to always exercise kindness. It's my duty to preserve these things so she can navigate on her own. We also have to understand as parents that we do not own our children. This was something that for me was a little bit left field when I really started thinking about this. But realizing that we do not own our children is something that the sooner you are able to understand that, the better you will try and prepare your child for a world outside of the home that will do their best to assign things to them, that will do their best to tear them down. Our children are only extensions of us. We bring them here, but ultimately, when they reach a point in their life where they are ready to be set free, then we must set them free. Because we are only here to guide, provide, and release our children. To be quite honest, they don't owe us for their existence, nor are they obligated to take care of us once we grow older. That's one thing that I've seen in many scenarios where parents get older and they expect their children to press pause on their life to take care of them. And for me, I don't believe necessarily that that is their job to do that. However, if we raise them in a way where they want to make sure that we are taken care of, that's different. But I'm not going to place the expectation on my own child that whenever I get to an age that I'm older and it takes a little bit more time for me to maneuver and get around, I'm not going to place the expectation on her that she should drop her life and take care of me. If she feels within her heart that she wants to be around us, she wants to continue to be in our lives in such a way, then I will welcome that with open arms, but it's not a requirement. To be honest, we are the descendants of parents whose parenting style was created during a simpler yet harsher time. And because of this, we often, again, have to take time within our own minds to unlearn toxic habits and traits. And to be quite honest, our generation is a lot more attuned and ready for drastic changes, especially within ourself. And so because of this, I realize that we are faster to react with more compassion and understanding. To be honest, if we don't know something, more than likely we are able to obtain the information needed and involve the people needed. We don't really have much shame in doing that as millennials. we're not afraid to ask for help if it's necessary. Because sometimes there are things that we cannot do alone. But I know that for even our parents, it was the pressure to make it on your own. And because of that, there were things that were left unresolved. It can be family issues. It can be confidence issues. It can be any type of issue under the sun. But if you're made to feel like once you leave your house, you do not have a lifeline that you can draw back to, I feel like that is a failure when it comes to being a parent. If your child is not able to come to you for aid, for assistance, for help, and they are made to feel like they have to survive this world out on their own, I don't think that's right. And to be honest, we as millennials, we also don't use the weapon of shame on our children as much as the weapon of shame was used on us. Shame and guilt go hand in hand and is a fear tactic. It is something that is designed to control and manipulate a child because they don't have yet the understanding of a situation. And in order to get them to cooperate, we use shame, we use fear. And a lot of those tactics were used even on us to the point where we were damaged because of it. And I know that as millennials, we are not the type of parents who want to use those types of tactics on our children to get them to cooperate, because we don't want to continue that cycle again. We don't want our children to grow up fearing and feeling guilty about things that they have no control over, or feeling ashamed of who they are. It's not fair. It wouldn't be fair to send them into this world like that. So we're going to take our break, get some water, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the parents that came before us, the parents that parented us, this generation of millennials, this generation I belong to. We're going to talk about them. So get your water, make sure you're staying hydrated, and we will be right back. This is TARODCAST. Yo, what's good, everyone? This is your host of TARODCAST, Tarod Rashan, and I just want to welcome you to the commercial break. Now, you already know what time it is. It's hydration time. Get some high-quality H2O in your system now. Got a few things I'd like to go over. First, to all of our new and returning listeners, thank you so much for your ear and your time. To all of our Patreon supporters, I just want you to know that we are not able to do this without your direct support. So the biggest, dopest TARODCAST thank you goes out to you. If you're listening in and you're thinking about becoming part of the TARODCAST Patreon family, we'd love to have you. You can find us at www.patreon.com/TARODCAST. Now on Patreon, we have 3 tiers of support: a $2 tier, a $3 tier, and lastly, a $6 tier. Each tier comes with its own set of unique perks. So if you find one that fits you, sign up. For us, the main thing is keeping our subscription prices affordable. We know that you work hard for your money, and if you choose to support TARODCAST this way, we truly want to make it worth your time. To find out more about our Patreon and the perks with each tier, visit www.patreon.com/TARODCAST. We've got it all laid out for you. Also, we've got a merchandise store. Pick up some tees, hoodies, leggings, and more at forevercertain.redbubble.com. All proceeds go right back into the TARODCAST podcast and allow us to keep making high quality content for people just like you. For our listeners out there who would like to support us in a non-monetary way, we'd love that too. Share our show with people you know. Also, share us on your social media. And if your favorite TARODCAST streaming service allows you to rate and review our show and you're loving what you're hearing, take some time and leave us a 5-star review. Ratings and reviews are what set us apart from other podcasts, and also helps us to recommend our podcast to other listeners we otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to reach. Lastly, if you'd like to reach out to us directly, email us at TARODCAST@CRTN-T.com. That's TARODCAST at CRTN-T.com. All of this information can always be found in our episode notes, so make sure to check there if you forget any of the information we just went over. Once again, thank you all so much, and let's get back to the program. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you all got hydrated. As always, I have my trusty handy dandy bottle of water here. And before we went on break, we were going into the subject of the parents before us. Now, I understand completely that everyone's parents are different, but for the majority of people of color, people like me, a lot of our parents came from backgrounds that root them in tradition. And because of these traditions, it's hard to accept a child that chooses not to uphold their same belief systems. And to be quite honest, it's even harder for some parents to accept if their child chooses to be with someone that is of a different race. I know that this is a loud issue in the Black community, where we have the notion of Black love and only dating within our race and creating more Black babies who then do the same. And honestly, I don't believe that that's right, because there are people who know how to love, who look like us, but there are a lot of people who don't know how to love, who look like us. And it's the same really for anyone of any race, any ethnicity, any background. And so my thought on that is, find someone that makes you feel like a complete person. They allow you to be a complete person. It doesn't matter who they are or what they look like, what shade of melanin or the lack of melanin thereof. If they are the type of person that makes you feel like your best self, even when you feel like your worst self, then that is the person for you. I also realized that for a lot of our millennial, a lot of us millennials, our parents, they grew up in a pre and post civil rights era, where in this country, especially for people of color, we were not granted certain civil rights. The civil rights movement that happened in the 50s and 60s is something that a lot of our parents were either alive for or their parents lived through, and they were born in the midst of that. And so there were still heavy tensions in society that wanted to see people of color kept at the bottom of the totem pole. And a lot of our parents and our parents' parents, they escaped to traditional beliefs and values and systems. And a lot of that they wanted to instill within their children. But we're living in a different time, living in a different age now. And not to say that none of what they did was important. I don't want to downplay it, but as times change, people must also change. And if you are afraid of change, you will always be in the same place. You will always be stagnant in the same areas. And you can't expect to raise a child and expect them to move forward if you do not also move forward. And so for the parents that I know who are out there who did not believe in radical ideas or didn't believe in things that were unconventional, or they didn't believe in things that stemmed from areas outside of their tradition, I feel like they maintained the status quo and upheld traditional gender roles. You know, a man must do this, a woman must do that. And in these times, those things are changing. They're becoming more of a blurred gray area. A lot of gender roles and things like that are being left by the wayside now by people like me. And I don't expect my wife and my daughter to be the person to sit and just take care of a household while I go out to work. I want them to be everything that they are destined to be. And I don't want to hinder them in any way from achieving that destiny that has their name written on it. And I also believe that a lot of our parents were oftentimes brought up in families that did not allow for their children to express their opinions. I think about the phrase, the common phrases that we've heard growing up. Things like be seen and not heard, or grown folks are talking. And just going back to what I was saying earlier, when it comes to conversations and my daughter feels like she can add something to it, we let her add something to that conversation. I understand that not everybody will feel the same way as me. That's perfectly fine. Again, like in the intro, take everything we say with a grain of salt. We're just adding flavor to your meal. That's it. We just want to inspire some conversation. But my daughter, when it comes to her and the input that she believes that she can add to a conversation, we want to let her know that we value that. And with that being said, because a lot of our parents dealt with that type of behavior from their parents, when our parents had us, I feel like there were some parents out here who used this as an opportunity to exercise total authority without exercising the creation of autonomy in their children. And this is where I believe that discipline based on inconvenience is scarring us. It's making us see things in a way that does not give us opportunities to grow or to think critically, because discipline coming from a perspective of seeing things in black and white is not going to survive us in a world that is covered in gray. I also have seen that there are some parents out here who also believe that they are owed for the provisions they've given to their children. And again, I don't necessarily agree with that. Let me just say it bluntly. I don't agree with that. I don't believe that my daughter owes me for just being her dad. It is my responsibility to take care of her. Typically, parents look at this type of belief as providing a roof over their child's head, or food in their child's stomach, or clothes on their child's back. And these are basic necessities that must be provided, whether you have children or not. And I'm not going to expect my child to pay me back for everything that I am supposed to do for her as a father. And I also believe that when some parents are older, they expect for their children, like I said before, to just completely readjust and uproot their own lives to take care of them. And in many ways, this is not a bad thing, because I believe that it takes a village to raise a child. And if you are a part of a village of people who look out for one another, they're loyal to one another, they take care of one another, then that is completely different. It's completely different. What I'm talking about is the parents who feel like it is a requirement, but it is not a requirement, nor should they make their children feel like it is an obligation. I've seen some situations and scenarios where there may be a parent or parents who fall on hard times, and they turn to their children for help or assistance. And in turning to them, they want them to be their haven. But I've also seen that there are some that, well, unfortunately and unfairly, they don't respect their children's lives. Sometimes they use the tools of shame and guilt to manipulate, believing that this is love that is owed to them. But in my honest opinion, excuse me, that is toxicity. If you have to shame and guilt your child to do something for you, whenever you, being the adult with more experience, more supposed wisdom, you feel the need to overstep and demand that your children take care of you when you reach a point, especially if you're still able-bodied and able to move around and do things, you reach a point and you don't know how you're going to return from that. If you go to your child for assistance, but you do not respect their lives, you do not respect even their rules. If you're in their home and you don't respect what they require in their space, then you are wrong. You are toxic. You lack respect, because as a millennial, we're adults. We're adults now. So we do not have to take any bullshit from anyone, including people that brought us into this world. This whole, I brought you into this world, I can take you out. That doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. But at the same time, I know that for me, I do not want to be a parent who ever thinks like that. I don't want to look at my child as a pawn or something or someone that, because I played a role in bringing them here, they now have to give me all of them whenever I need it, whenever I say. That's toxic. That is very toxic. And unfortunately, there are some parents out here who don't realize that we belong now to the world and to the ones that we love and love us back, just as they once did, whether or not they actually realized it. And that is a huge thing to really accept, because in situations where you find yourself needing a reliable shoulder, oftentimes we will turn to our children. Our parents will turn to us, because now we are at a place where we can really understand what is going on. We can understand the words and the situations that are happening. And as heavy as that is, we're still not obligated to do anything. If we believe in our heart it's the right thing to do, then yes, we will do it. But to make it as if you are owed this type of reciprocity is wrong. It's unacceptable. It's something that I know I won't stand for, because as a man, I have to chart my own course. I have to live with the decisions that I make. I have to be accepting of the cause and effect. I have to own up to my mistakes. I have to do that. And if I have to do it, then the parents before us, I hold in that same regard. I have that same expectation. And on the subject of expectations, there are a lot of expectations that need to be curbed. One of the biggest hurdles a parent must overcome is abandoning expectations of their children. As millennial parents, I feel like we have a higher propensity to be much more accepting and nurturing of our children. And in that nurture, we seek to prepare our children for a world that is constantly changing and not a world that resembles our own. That is huge. I said that just now, but I just realized how huge that is, because we as millennials, we grew up in the midst of a world that was evolving very fast. And we were forced to change with that world. And when we have children, we have to prepare them in the same way that we needed to adapt and prepare for this world. Whether or not we had parents that understood the gravity of that. I also think about Dwayne Wade and his daughter, Zaya. and the changes that she is going through as a child, and how accepting he and his wife are of her decision to be a girl. Even though she was born a boy, she is identifying as a transgendered young girl. And they're receiving so much flack, but they're also receiving a lot of support. And a lot of people don't know what to do with that because it goes against tradition. But in a society where we're breaking away from traditions, more and more of us are able to understand that we need to be that rock for our children. We need to be that haven for our children to give them expression, the freedom of expression. We need to make them feel loved. We need to love them. We knew going into this that this world would be changing. And as our children change with this ever-changing world, we have to be able to really grasp what that means. So when we allow our children to have and understand their value, we give them the freedom to think independently. And by allowing our children the freedom to understand that their voices are important, we prepare them for a society that cannot silence them. I feel like we must give our children an opportunity to express who they are and what they feel, as well as even correct us and call us out if we are wrong. You know, my daughter, she has no issues with saying that's wrong or don't say that or daddy, that's a cuss word. She holds me accountable just like I hold her accountable. And I don't get offended. Why should I? I feel like a lot of parents, especially parents that were our parents, they feel like it is a sign of disrespect if we voice our own opinion. No, it's not. Let go of the outdated ideals that a children must respect you in all situations, especially if you are wrong. That doesn't fly. It doesn't fly anymore. And oftentimes we were told, I'm not one of your little friends. But consequently, if we do not show our children how to be a good friend, then we stunt their ability to learn and return compassion, trust, safety, and loyalty to others. The moment that we allow our parenting to lead with love, we will create children who will do the same. And I believe that. I believe that with all my heart. So as we close out, I want to extend an olive branch to millennial parents and parents who are the parents of us millennials, and to realize that we have to work together. There are going to be things that we do that are outside of what you expect. And there are going to be times where we do not agree. But it's in these times where we must have conversations to get to the root of the issue, whether we decide to agree or disagree. Understanding one another's perspective is what will carry us forward. And with that, when we are able to move forward together, that's when we're able to build those villages that will in turn help to raise our children in a way that gives them so much more wisdom and experience and things that they can use to prepare them for this world. That is truly our charge. So with that being said, I just want to thank you guys for listening. Once again, you know how to support us. You know how to find us. Make sure to leave a 5-star review. I want to encourage you once more. Be more introspective and vulnerable with yourself. Know who you are and love who you are. Thank you for listening to this episode of TARODCAST, and make every effort to find and keep your peace.